Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Why Communication Matters. I'm Felicia, and today we're speaking to Pranav, and we'll talk you through how PR helps a startup build brand awareness, attract investors and customers, and build credibility. Thanks for joining us, Pranav.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Pranav, what are some of the challenges that startups face today?
As many challenges that startups face today, one of them is building credibility, especially if you're an early stage company. How do you build credibility? How do you build trust? How do you build a loyal customer base? These are some things that a lot of the startups we work with deal with on a daily basis, and these are some of the problems that we help them solve through a variety of different communication strategies.
So what do startup brands need, and how do these needs change as a startup grows?
Well, it's a very good question because what startups need does change at different phases of growth, and actually it all ties down to what are their main business objectives. So if you look at a company at an early stage, maybe a seed stage, their main objective is to raise the next round of funding, and that means that they need that funding to start building out their business and hire some key people and build a product. So for us, when we work with startups around that sort of life cycle, one of the big things that we focus on is communication to investors in the investment community. As they grow and as they start going to Series A and start looking at expanding across different markets, they're looking at adding customers, right? So a lot of our communications has to focus on who their customers are and focus on communicating to them. Their customers could be brands, it could be businesses, they could be people if they're a B2C company. At the same time, they also still have to raise future rounds of funding. So they are focusing on the investment community, and they're also looking for great talent. So they're looking to put out signals that this is a great place to work for, and these companies are on sort of a pace of fast growth. As they grow past A, they're looking at doing that and replicating that across different countries.
Yeah. And
they're looking at doing that in a cohesive strategy, in a cohesive manner, without having varying messages across different markets. Once you go past sort of the BC, they're quite established at that phase. They're raising relatively large rounds of funding. A lot of the work through that phase also focuses on the founding team or the CEO or the C-suite as well, building their profiles, building thought leadership for the companies as well. And then for a lot of them going towards an IPO or an acquisition, a lot of the communications changes a little bit towards that as well. So different phases, different things that they require. The end result really has to tie into what their business objectives are, and we have to make sure we create our communication strategies to match with that as well.
so when should a startup begin investing in PR, and what are the benefits?
It's a question we get asked quite a lot. That's normally followed by, we don't have a lot of money, so how should we prioritize this? I think startups need to think about this right from the start. What tends to happen is that a lot of lean founding teams focus a lot on their product and focus a lot on their customers, that they forget the communication aspect of it. But for their customers to trust them, and for investors to trust them as well, they need to have some level of credibility played out, and that can come in the form of media mentions, that can come in the form of articles written about them, it can come in the form of thought leadership posts that are on reputable sites as well. So building that trust and credibility is very important from the start. That doesn't mean that startups have to go out and do everything that comes under communication at the start, but they have to think about it. They have to start communicating effectively. They have to communicate strategically as well, and they should start doing it in a planned and organized way, because whatever goes out about that company, especially at the early stages, is going to set an impression, and it's going to set the early reputation of their company. So you don't want to do it wrong. You need to do it right from the start.
Absolutely. So how do we create a PR strategy for a startup?
It's no different to looking at how you create PR strategies for other companies as well. PR strategies have to be defined by a few things. What is the business objective? What are the communication challenges? Who are the target audiences? And then you have to sort of map where those where the target audiences are consuming information, and base everything around that. As long as you're following the basics of creating a PR campaign and PR strategy, you should be on the right track. Now, where the challenges come in is that sometimes your budgets are relatively low, so you're trying to do a lot for little. So then you have to think about how you can be creative to meet those goals and to communicate to those audiences as well.
So what are some of the key questions journalists would ask a startup?
It's a great question, because journalists, especially when a startup's at an early stage, they have a lot of questions about what the business is, especially if it's a new business model they haven't seen before. And they have a lot of questions about whether they can actually trust this company and whether this company is credible. We've seen too many times where people, you see the story of Theranos, for example, a lot of people wrote about them, they said a lot of things, but their claims weren't verifiable. And yet media still wrote about them, people still wrote about them. They raised, $1 billion, a valuation of $1 billion, they raised tons of money. And, unfortunately that value of the company is zero. And this court case is going on. So you have to make sure, journalists have to make sure that they're getting the right information. They have to make sure that they get information that is verifiable. So when journalists are speaking to startup founders, and they're really looking for information that can be backed up. They're not just going to write everything that the founder says. They will look at it and think about it critically before writing a story. And they're really looking at, what impact is this company going to have? What is the problem that there is? How are they going to solve it? And how are they different from some of the other solutions that may be there in the market? Those are the key things that they really look for.
So what are the benefits of working with a PR agency for a startup?
The benefits are multifold and really depends on the level and the stage of the startup as well. At the early stage, startup founders really focus on their product and on customers. So we come in as the extended communications team. We really plug ourselves, we work directly with the founders, and we work very closely to create their narratives and to then go ahead and execute the PR plans as well. As companies grow to sort of Series A and beyond, the role we play is very similar, but it gets magnified and gets expanded across different markets and to larger markets as well. There, the questions are about building credibility, building trust, and building awareness. And that's where we can use our network of operating and working in different countries. We can use the best practices that we've seen from working with hundreds of startups over the last 2 years. And again, we can build very strong communication strategies that are tailored to the particular startup and that we know will create an impact to solve their business problem or communications problem that they've said right at the start.
Thank you so much, Pranav. This was very interesting. I hope you found the insights valuable as well. If you have any questions about how to build a PR strategy for startup, please leave a comment down below. Also, make sure to check out our other videos. Thank you and see you next time.